The fog lifted slowly from the valley as the first rays of sun touched the tall wooden walls of the amphitheater. Dew clung to every plank, making the great oval structure shine as if it were made of bronze instead of timber. From a distance, it looked like a giant sleeping animal curled around a sandy heart. No one in the town of Lindum had ever seen anything like it. For months, Roman soldiers and local workers had labored day and night, cutting trees from the forests, hauling beams across muddy roads, and hammering them into place with iron nails that rang like bells. The sound of building had become the town's heartbeat. Now, at last, it was finished. The wooden Roman amphitheater stood ready. A boy and a dream. 17-year-old Marcus Varro stood at the edge of the crowd, staring up at the towering structure. His father had helped build it, his hands still scarred from splinters and rope burns, but Marcus had never stepped inside. To him, it was more than a building. It was a promise. Marcus was not born into power. His family were carpenters and cart drivers, but Marcus dreamed of becoming something more. He wanted to be a gladiator, not just a fighter, but a hero. He had watched soldiers train, listened to traveling storytellers speak of the great arenas of Rome, and imagined his name being shouted by thousands. But Lindum was not Rome. It was a quiet outpost on the edge of the empire. People came here to farm, trade, and forget they were part of something vast and cruel. That was about to change. The governor's arrival. On the morning of the opening, trumpets sounded from the eastern road. Dust rose as a line of riders approached, their armor gleaming. At their head rode Lucius Aemilianus, a man known for two things: ambition and bloodshed. He dismounted before the amphitheater and surveyed it with a narrow smile. So, this is our Rome. The wooden walls creaked slightly in the breeze. Birds flew overhead. Lucius turned to his aides. By the end of today, this place will echo with screams, cheers, and the music of steel, and Lindum will never be forgotten. Inside the wooden beast. Marcus slipped inside with the crowd. The smell of fresh-cut pine filled the air. Rows of wooden seats rose around the arena, holding thousands of people. Some were Roman citizens. Others were local Britons, curious and uneasy. At the center lay the sand, clean, untouched. It would not stay that way. Below the arena floor were small holding chambers built from timber and iron bars. Inside them waited prisoners, slaves, and condemned criminals. Among them was Aelia. She was not a criminal. She was a healer from a nearby village, accused of helping rebels. Now she was dressed in a simple tunic, her hands bound, her face calm but pale. Marcus caught a glimpse of her as guards dragged fighters toward the gates. Something about her eyes stayed with him. The games began. The governor took his seat, draped in red. The crowd fell silent. People of Lindum, today we celebrate Roman power and Roman order. These games are a gift to remind you who we are. The gates opened. First came the animal hunts. Wolves and wild boars charged into the arena, facing hunters with spears. Blood darkened the sand. The crowd roared. Then came the executions. Condemned men were forced to fight each other or the beasts. Many died screaming. Marcus felt sick, but he couldn't look away. This was the price of glory. Aelia's turn. Finally, a single gate opened. Aelia was pushed into the light. A murmur ran through the crowd. She was not armed. She was not trained. She stood alone in the vast arena. Governor Lucius leaned forward. Let us see if mercy survives. A horn sounded. From the opposite gate came a gladiator in full armor, a towering man with a curved blade. Marcus felt his heart pound. This wasn't a fight, this was a slaughter. Before he knew what he was doing, he ran. A choice. Marcus jumped over the wooden railing and landed in the arena. The crowd gasped. "Stop!" he shouted. The gladiator hesitated. Governor Lucius rose from his seat, furious. "Who is this fool?" "I will fight," Marcus said, "in her place." The silence was heavy. Lucius studied him. "You, a boy?" Marcus nodded. "Very well," the governor said with a cruel smile. "Entain us." Blood and wood. A sword was thrown at Marcus's feet. He picked it up, hands shaking. The gladiator advanced. Wooden walls echoed with every step, every breath. The amphitheater seemed alive, listening. They clashed. Marcus was not skilled, but he was fast. He dodged, stumbled, and struck with desperate courage. The gladiator grazed his arm. Blood flowed, but Marcus kept going. Finally, with a lucky strike, he knocked the blade from the gladiator's hand. The man fell. The crowd erupted. Lucius's smile faded. "Finish him!" someone shouted. Marcus looked at Aelia, still standing at the edge of the arena. He lowered his sword. "I won't." The crowd decided. For a moment, no one knew what to do. Then, slowly, applause began. Not the roar of bloodlust, but something different. Respect. Lucius stood, his power suddenly uncertain. The people of Lindum were watching him now. With a tight jaw, he raised his hand. "Spare them." The gladiator was dragged away. Aelia collapsed to her knees, alive. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. After the dust settled, that night the amphitheater stood silent under the stars. The wooden beams still smelled of sap and sweat and blood. Marcus sat with Aelia outside the gates. "You risked everything," she said softly. "So did you," he replied. The games would continue. The empire would remain cruel, but something had changed. In a place built for death, a moment of humanity had survived. The legacy of wood. Years later, the wooden amphitheater would rot and collapse. New buildings would rise. History would forget Lindum, but some stories last longer than stone. They say that in the quiet hours, when the wind moves through old timbers, you can still hear the echo of a boy who stood in the sand and chose mercy over fear. And for a moment, even the Roman Empire listened.